My name is Joel Palefsky from the University of California, San Francisco. Very pleased to be joining you at the HPV Roundtable meeting, and I'm going to be presenting on the ANCHOR trial data. The incidence of anal cancer is increasing in the general population, but the risk is not evenly distributed. Shown on this slide are the groups that are at especially high risk of anal cancer. They include 3 groups of people living with HIV, and they include women with HPV-related disease at other anogenital sites, and people who are immune suppressed for reasons other than HIV, such as solid organ transplant. Anal and cervical cancer are very similar diseases, and we know that treatment of cervical HSIL, the cervical cancer precursor, is effective at reducing the incidence of cervical cancer. So we've always asked ourselves, why can't we do something similar to prevent anal cancer? This has never become standard of care because we never had the data to show that such an approach actually worked. For this reason, we did the ANCHOR study, which stands for Anal Cancer HSIL Outcomes Research Study. This was a study of the AIDS Malignancy Consortium of the National Cancer Institute. We had 4 aims. The first was to determine whether treating anal HSIL actually does reduce the incidence of anal cancer in people living with HIV, the highest risk group. We wanted to know about the safety of the treatments that we used to treat the lesions. We wanted to know if we were having any impact on quality of life. And for this reason, we developed our own validated instrument called HERSI. And then we wanted to understand the pathogenesis of progression from high-grade disease to cancer and to identify biomarkers of progression. And to do so, we established a biobank of specimens collected from participants and follow-up. This is the study schema. We screened people 35 years and older living with HIV for biopsy-proven anal HSIL. If they met the study criteria and had biopsy-proven HSIL, they were enrolled and randomized 50-50 to active monitoring, in which we followed the HSIL lesion carefully over time, and treatment, in which we did our best over time to treat as much of that HSIL for as long as possible. If they had cancer at screening, then they were not enrolled, but were referred for treatment. And if we didn't find HSIL, they were not enrolled. Based on our original power calculations, we thought we would need to enroll and follow 5,058 individuals to get our cancer target met. But in fact, the rates of progression, as you'll see, were higher than we were anticipating. And we were able to stop the study before we met that target. In fact, we ended up enrolling 4,446 individuals. And to identify them, we screened 10,723 people. I thought you might be interested to see the prevalence of anal HSIL and cancer at screening in this population. 53% of the men had anal HSIL, 47% of the women, and 67% of the transgender individuals had anal HSIL. In addition, we found cancer in 17 individuals for a prevalence of 160 per 100,000. So here was the primary study finding. Based on a final analysis of 30 cases, we found 9 in the treatment arm and 21 in the active monitoring arm. This was a 57% reduction in anal cancer, and this was a finding that was statistically significant. We saw really high progression of anal HSIL to cancer at 402 per 100,000 person years. It was lower, of course, in the treatment arm, although it was higher than we would actually like, clearly indicating the need for even better treatment than we have now. Fortunately, there were very few adverse events. There were only 7 study-related adverse events in the treatment arm, 1 in the active monitoring arm. There were deaths in both arms, but none of these were related to the study. So the implications of the study are that the rate of progression from anal HSIL to cancer is very high. The prevalence of anal HSIL is very high. And fortunately, treatment of HSIL, we've now shown for the first time, is effective in reducing the incidence of anal cancer. And we believe that these data should be used to establish screening for and treating anal HSIL in people living with HIV as a standard of care procedure. There are many more things to do. We need to optimize screening algorithms. We need to identify biomarkers of progression so we can determine who needs to be treated most urgently for their anal HSIL, since so many people have HSIL. And we definitely need to expand the workforce of people who are competent in performing high-resolution anoscopy. Finally, we need to have a discussion about whether we can use the findings from ANCHOR to take care of people who don't have HIV, but have some of the other risk factors that I presented earlier in my presentation. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. Look forward to an interesting discussion.